Real stories of werewolves, of Dogman history, from your emails, illustrated and animated with the democratizing magic of machine learning AI. Welcome to Scary Stories. Welcome to a very special episode. We are currently in the process of creating 4 5-hour-long specials, archiving the last 2 years of secret episodes for our channel members. Whilst performing this Herculean task, we noticed some episodes that we might be able to share with the public, albeit in a slightly censored form. Keep in mind that if you become a channel member, either through YouTube or by joining our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com, you can enjoy the full uncensored versions of these 2 stories. But here's just a wee taste of what you can get as a member for as little as 99 cents per month. Enjoy!
I dated a werewolf. Dear Scary Stories NYC, I still remember the look on my best friend's face when she suggested I go on a blind date with this guy she knew who had a unibrow. I'll admit, it wasn't the most enticing description, but something about her excitement and eagerness made me agree to go. And that's how I found myself at a cozy Italian restaurant, sitting across from a man with thick dark eyebrows that melded into one above his nose. He had a smile that could light up a room. It didn't take us long for us to start chatting like old friends. His name was Julian, and he said he was an artist who loved drawing portraits of people he met. He sketched me on a napkin, and I was surprised to find that it actually looked quite a lot like me. There was something captivating about his unique perspective on life, and before I knew it, we had polished off a bottle of red wine, and we were deep in conversation about our hopes, dreams, and fears. As the night wore on, Julian's hand casually brushed against mine, sending a jolt of electricity through my body. And then, out of nowhere, he leaned in and started kissing my neck. The sensation was intense, and I let out a soft moan as he nibbled on my skin. In that moment, I thought he was the perfect man, and I wanted him to do whatever he wanted. But then, as I felt him bite down harder, I pushed him away in confusion. "What the hell was that?" I gasped, my hand flying to my neck. "I'm sorry," he said, sheepishly wiping his mouth. "I can't help it sometimes. You see, I have lycanthropy." I blinked, not quite understanding what he meant. "What's that?" I asked. "Some kind of VD?" Julian shook his head, his eyes darkening with an intensity that made me shiver. "It means I'm a werewolf," he said, calmly but firmly. At first I thought he was joking, but then he proceeded to tell me about the full moon rituals he engaged in, the way he deliberately transformed himself into a snarling beast, and the hunger that consumed him during those times. And as he spoke, I couldn't help but feel a mix of fear and fascination. Here was a man who was unlike anyone I'd ever met before, and there was something thrilling about being in his presence. When he said he was a werewolf, for some reason, no alarm bells went off in my head. I just nodded and accepted it, at least until I got home and was alone again. That was when I looked at the strange bite mark on my neck and mentally planned to go to the emergency room in the morning. Lord only knows what I might have caught from that man's saliva. I couldn't understand why I didn't wash the wound at the restaurant and terminate the date immediately. I felt very angry at myself, and I wondered if I'd been in a trance or something. The next day I called Julian, wanting an explanation from him, but he wasn't picking up. In a couple more days, he seemed to have canceled that phone number completely and just ghosted on me 100%. I wanted to get the wound on my neck checked out, but it was completely healed by the time I got up the next day. Since I was feeling fine, I sort of forgot about it until a few weeks later, on the first night of the full moon. You know what happened. I transformed for the first time. Julian had infected me, had made me like him, but he had performed ceremonies to become what I am. He had chosen this life. I had it thrust upon me by a blind date who split town and closed all his socials immediately afterward. None of us had any info on this guy, and one of my friends even hired a private detective, which is out of my budget to do. We figure he probably operates under a number of aliases, but so far, we haven't located any of them. And I'm stuck with this curse. I can't control it the way Julian can. My cycles are tied firmly to those of the moon, and I've become more of an expression of nature than a free-thinking individual. When I'm that thing, I just chase and kill anything that moves. I become an animal, in the fullest, meanest sense of the word. And it's not a noble life, either. It's ugly. It's terrible. It's unspeakably unspeakable. And the transformation into the beast is as painful as you might expect it to be. I never imagined that becoming a werewolf would be such a traumatic experience. The first time it happened to me, while I was out for a stroll in the woods at night, nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to endure. As the moon rose high in the sky, I felt an intense pain course through my body, and I somehow knew deep inside that it was time for the transformation, even though it had never happened to me before. My limbs began to stretch, and my fingers and toes elongated into sharp claws. Every inch of my skin prickled with the sensation of hair growing at an alarmingly fast rate. The transformation was overwhelming, and my screams echoed through the night as the change overtook me. My old life was dead, and these were the birthing screams of my new one. The first started at my toes and slowly made its way up my body in a matter of moments, spreading like some kind of a disease until I was completely coated in it. I felt as if 1,000,000 needles were piercing my skin with every burst of fur, and I could feel the heat and the weight of each strand as it erupted from my flesh. My bones started shifting as they realigned themselves to support my lupine form. I could feel my spine curve and my skull contort into a new shape as it grew. The pain was insurmountable. I fell to the ground with a sickening thud, unable to do anything but endure the excruciating agony of metamorphosis. As the transformation reached its climax, my vocal cords also changed and transformed, and I let out a heart-wrenching howl that resonated through the forest. When it was finally over, I found myself panting and sweating, with an overwhelming sense of relief so potent it was almost euphoric. Though I was alive and healthy, I had transformed into something neither human nor animal, but somewhere horribly in between. Although I should have been elated at the realization of my new power, mostly what I felt was dread and an inescapable sense of sadness and loss. I knew without knowing that this was going to be the worst night of my life, and that it would be the first of many such nights. Every full moon I dread the transformation that is about to occur. My bones begin to ache sometimes up to 2 days beforehand, and my senses become heightened until I can feel every hair on my body standing on end. My hearing can sometimes become quite acute, even before the transformation happens, and I get a sort of a short-term premonition ability. It's a strange but familiar sensation that I've grown accustomed to over the years. I know what's coming next, and it's usually not pleasant, but I can only sense a few seconds to a minute into the future. Like I'll know the phone is gonna ring, and I'll know who it is calling before it rings. It must be an instinct useful to wolves in hunting, to be able to sense a few seconds beforehand what might happen next. When it's around that time of the month, I've been known to answer people's questions before they ask them, and that sort of thing. As the transformation itself grips me on the 3 full moon nights, I can feel my muscles contorting and stretching in ways that no human body should. The pain is almost unbearable, and I scream as I feel my bones shifting and sounding like they're breaking. It's like being trapped inside a living nightmare, where your body is tearing itself apart from the inside out. But eventually the pain subsides, and I'm left with the terrible realization that I've transformed into a werewolf once again. It's a strange and unsettling feeling, as if I'm no longer myself, but something else entirely. My mind is filled with primal thoughts, and all I can think about is the hunt. Actually, I'm not sure I'd really call it thinking at all. The first time I transformed, I was terrified by the sheer power and strength that I possessed. It was as if every muscle in my body had been replaced with steel cables, and I could run at great speed, effortlessly. I remember chasing after prey through the woods, my senses heightened, and my instincts taking over. In that moment, I felt like a monster, and I was overcome with an insatiable thirst. It's a terrible mix of feelings being a werewolf. The power and strength are intoxicating, but so is the fear and the horror at what I become. There is no control over my actions, no way to stop the bloodlust that consumes me. It's a primal and savage existence that I cannot escape from. When the phase of the moon decides, I become a monster. Then I let out a guttural howl as my vision sharpens and my senses heighten. It's time to hunt. I leap from my hiding place. I begin to sprint, my powerful legs carrying me swiftly through the dense woodland. The scent of my prey fills my nostrils, spurring me on as I give chase. The wind whips through my fur as I bound over fallen logs and weave through the trees, my wild instincts taking over as I focus solely on the task at hand. The buck deer is fast, but I am faster. I can hear the frantic beating of its heart as it tries to outrun me, but I keep gaining ground. My muscles ripple beneath my skin as I power up a steep incline, my paws digging into the soft earth as I gain purchase. The buck turns sharply to the left, but I'm ready for it. I pivot easily, my claws digging into the soil as I change direction and launch my massive frame toward my prey. I feel the satisfaction of contact as my jaws clamp down on the deer's neck, my powerful teeth sinking deep into its throat. The buck struggles valiantly, but I am too strong. I pull it down onto the forest floor, feeling the jolt of impact as our bodies slam down. My grip tightens as the deer bucks and thrashes beneath me, its struggles growing weaker by the second. Finally, the moment comes. I deliver the coup de grace. The silence of the forest is shattered by my triumphant howl, my body trembling with adrenaline and exhilaration. As the werewolf fades and I regain control of my human form, I collapse onto the ground, panting and spent. It was a sick, dangerous game, but I emerged victorious, and for a few brief moments, I experienced the thrill of the hunt, like few others ever will. But then there's the aftermath. After hours of running and hunting, I grow exhausted from the superhuman exertion. My body aches, and my mind is clouded with a sense of guilt and shame. I become something monstrous, and I feel like I've lost a piece of myself in the process. Eventually, sleep overtakes me, and I return to human form again. The next morning, I'll wake up covered in dirt and sweat, my mind still reeling from the horrors of the night before. And I'll know that in just a few short weeks, the transformation will begin again, and I'll be forced to endure the terrible mix of feelings that come with being a werewolf. The Dogman kidnapped my Lurleen. Dear Scary Stories NYC. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was 1977, and my first wife Lurleen and I were living in a small cabin on the outskirts of the bayou in Louisiana. We had heard rumors of strange creatures lurking in the swamp, but we paid them no mind. One night, while Lurleen and I were sitting on the porch, we heard a strange noise coming from the woods. It was a low growl, like nothing we had ever heard before. I dismissed it as just some wild animal, but Lurleen was scared. Suddenly, out of the darkness, a huge figure appeared. It must have been at least 12 feet tall and covered in fur. The head of the creature was that of a dog, with sharp teeth and glowing eyes. It was a beast like no other. Without warning, the creature lunged at Lurleen and dragged her into the woods. I tried to grab her, but that beast was too strong and too fast. I heard her scream as it pulled her deeper into the swamp. Of course I ran after them, but when I caught up, the Dogman slugged me and knocked me right out. By the time I woke up, the both of them were long gone. Trembling with fear, I searched for Lurleen for days, but I never found her. I knew in my heart that she was gone forever, and so I told the police that she was missing. From that day on, I have never been the same. The memory of that beast still haunts me, and I fear for anyone who ventures into that swamp after dark. The bayou is a dangerous and mysterious place, and the creatures that inhabit it are beyond comprehension. I pray every night that no one else meets the same fate as my dear Lurleen. Now, some people note that after my beloved wife's untimely passing, that I remarried quickly. What would they expect me to do? Stop my life just because of the Dogman? Look, I'm sorry about what happened to poor Lurleen, but Becky Sue would have been snatched up by some other guy if I didn't marry her quickly. And there are those who note that I was actually having an affair with Becky Sue while Lurleen was still alive, but I say so what? They try to imply that means I'm the one who did her in, and that I just made up the story about the Dogman doing it. That's crazy talk. Lurleen was over 200 pounds. I couldn't lift her up, let alone drag her into the swamp. Besides, the sheriff is my friend. He knows that I'm not any kind of killer, except a lady killer, if you know what I mean. Wait, that was a poor choice of words. Forget I said that. Anyway, I'm not the guilty party here. It was either a Dogman, or else it was a Rougarou. But since I'm neither of those things, that means I'm innocent. I'm lucky that big old Dogman didn't take me instead of Lurleen. But that was not what fate decided would happen. What fate decided was that the Dogman kidnapped my Lurleen. Thanks, Biggie. And thanks to all of you for watching this far. If you liked it, please click like. If you'd like to see more of our work, please subscribe. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we put out a new episode. To become an executive producer, you can donate to us through the thanks button under each of our videos or through our paypal.me/PeterBernard209 page. To receive cool perks like secret uncensored Dogman episodes far too wild to ever run on this channel, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button. Or join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Joining either at the $3 a month level or above gets you access to our over 25 hours of secret uncensored Dogman stories available nowhere else. Do you have a scary story about Dogman or some other kind of high strangeness that happened to you? Let us know by emailing us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or by leaving us a voicemail message at 804-LA-SCARY. You may need to call back on that one. It cuts off after, I think, 3 minutes. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, thank you for simply watching to the end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.